All right, we're going to talk a little bit about primer. This is PR 404, I believe, by Pure Reflections. It's a 2K high build. It's a DTS, but it does say you can go over metal. Now, I don't think they mean this to paint metal or prime bare metal. I think what they mean is if you do something like this and there's a bit of metal poking through here and there, it's fine for that. You can always hit these little edges with a little bit of etch primer and then put the DTS on. So that's probably what we do. However, on this trunk lid, we got this crispy critter stuff in here. It's not a bag of Doritos yet, but it is crunchy. It's soft but crunchy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to epoxy prime the whole bottom of this trunk lid. That'll take care of everything, including over all the seam sealer and everything. We'll bury the whole bottom in epoxy primer. Then it can be scuffed and shot, but whatever happens in here, we're not going to touch. We're just going to leave it and paint over it. So we're going to have to paint over the epoxy primer fairly quickly. You got a window of so many days. Read your data sheet and it'll tell you how many days. Anyway, the whole point of this video, if you've ever taken primer that's been sitting for a couple months on the shelf, and this one's not as bad, it will stir up, but I usually use a 2-part epoxy primer called CRE 321. When you go to mix it up, it separates, it's heavy, it takes you forever. You can mix it for half an hour with a stir stick and you're not done. So usually I end up taking a stir stick, I mix it up real harsh till my arm runs out of steam, and then I'll grab one of those things from Home Depot that you put in your drill, and I put it in and spin it, and you're going to fart around for the better part of an hour to get it mixed. Now, if you keep it mixed every day and you use it really often, it's not a problem. Your other option is to take it to your paint shop and get them to mix it up on a high-speed shaker. But anyway, so this is what we're talking about today. I just picked these up. These are older than the hills. C1 something model, don't know what that means, but there's all the info. 4 amps. So it looks like a big industrial motor, but it only eats 4 amps. And I think the idea is it can run forever and not burn up. So the timer quit. You can see where the cord used to be a plug-in. Well, they basically hot-wired it at the timer, and they put a switch on the wall, which then they plugged in. So this is how they had this set up. Now, 15 or more years ago, I worked at a hardware store, and I've used this to mix paint. So it was kind of neat to see this was still there. The place has changed owners 3-4 times. But I know the guy that was running it is the manager, so I went in and said, hey, whatever happened to those old paint machines? And this is what this video is about. If you've ever had to stir, like old paint isn't bad, the paint will stir up. It can sit for years, and if it's solvent-based, I've shot like 6-7-year-old solvent-based on a car and had no issues with it at all. As long as you're using all the right stuff for it or something close and high quality. But primers are... oh, they're nasty, and it's a real pain in the butt. And if they sit too long, you want to make sure you really, really mix them and shake them. So I went and found these, and the nice thing is even paint. Like, I've got a lot of paint that's not terrible. This is much easier than trying to stir it up. So this one worked. Now, these don't run fast. You're not mixing your paint in 2-3 minutes. It's more like 5 to 10 minutes. And I'll show you that in a second. Now, they gave us this one, which was a parts machine. For some reason, this is seized, and they robbed the handle off it to put on this one at one time because it broke. It's the exact same model. It looks like the same base and casting. It's got that same bump on the side, as you can see. But this one must be an older one. And I say that because it's twice the weight as that one. I believe maybe the casting is thicker. I mean, this plate is removable. It looks to be the same, unless maybe it's just the electric motor. Maybe this one has a much heavier motor. And when I say heavier, This with the stand on it, I picked it up myself off the back of the truck and set it down like it was no big deal. I also picked up that one and I struggled with it a bit. So strangely heavier for whatever reason. So there must be something locked up either in this bolt or in these tubes. So we're going to try to blow that all apart. This was parts because I was told it didn't work. And it turned out, let's see if I can plug that in. Now, when I picked it up, the bearings were, no, look at that. When I picked it up, you could hardly turn that. And when I unloaded it from the truck and plugged it in, it went kind of like that real slow. So I didn't realize there was even a switch on it. But anyway, so I unplugged it and left it here. For the last couple hours, the door's been open and the sun's been hitting it. And it must have got the grease warm enough that all of a sudden it works. So if we unseize the clamps and get that working, I've got 2 machines. And I hope I can get those clamps working good because I'm really, really psyched about having 2 machines. So this one here, they had this one mounted where the switch was on the wall. Now the funny thing about these, they basically have roller bearings on the shafts. And because they've been sitting a while, I think this one is running faster now that I've used it 2-3 times. So basically, I'm probably going to clean them up and clean the hell out of the bearings and maybe spray a bunch of grease in there and then put proper grease in once I get them spinning super free. Like I say, this one barely moved. And I haven't fixed it yet. It just sat here with the door open in the sun, and then all of a sudden it worked. So you couldn't do this. I had to take both hands and pry this to barely get it to move. And when I plugged it in, it just kind of went like, you know, a little bit of a hum, and it barely moved. Where now, that'll shake paint. Yeah, so I don't know what's wrong here. It's all gooped up and whatever. But I mean, here's the exact same system. So I think these rods are just seized in there on that one. And I think what happened is this was working. And they probably had 2. And then when they got a newer version, one went outside because I'd never seen this one. I only knew about this one. And then we had something called a Red Devil, which had a shaker on each side. And it was really, really fast. But listen, for what I'm doing in the shop, yeah, these are all I need. This is great. But anyway, what I would recommend if you're doing primers and you want to do this a lot, a paint shaker. I started looking online in Amazon, and I saw the ones where it's a little plastic thing that you bolt to your bench. You put your drill on it, and it doesn't shake very fast. I don't even know if it'd be as fast as this. That being said, it'll probably work. I mean, just doing this with a can will work eventually. I think they're like $300 and some Canadian, if I'm not mistaken. And I've seen them for $400, and, you know, Princess Auto, Harbor Freight, they probably got one too. I didn't pay that kind of money for these. So what I would recommend to anyone who's doing this as a hobby, I mean, paint's not bad. You can stir it, but the primers, you're going to waste a lot of time. If you don't keep it mixed all the time and you're like me and you throw it on the shelf, you do work for a month, then you go back to it. It takes forever. So get something like this, but basically go to your, maybe not the Home Depots, because, you know, they don't have, they're run like a big chain place. So, I mean, they've gotten rid of this. And the reason they're all hidden in sheds and in the back. And the reason why A guy walks by when it's shaking. If you touch it, it's going to give you a couple wallops and then it'll likely leave a bruise. And I've actually put my hand against one when it was moving and it hurts, right? So they've gotten rid of these. Now they have the ones where you put them inside. So they basically have this inside a cabinet with a door, that closes. Now the nice thing with that is if you spilt paint out or something, it's inside the cabinet, which is horrible to clean, but at least it's not all over the place. So that being said, you go to like a Timber Mart or a Home Depot or a mom and pop hardware store, there's a good chance they have something like this out back. And even if it's not 100%, even if it needs a small electric motor, you probably get it for $100 and maybe $200, depending if it works good or not. So in this case, I got one, plus he gave me this one for parts. Turns out I'm pretty sure I can get this working just fine. I'm going to definitely do that. And I'm just going to throw these against the back wall. And when I'm mixing my stuff, I can basically go do something else while this is mixing. So what I did is I basically went to a store I used to work at. A friend of mine is manager there now. And I just said, you got any paint machines in the barn, in the warehouse, upstairs, and some mezzanine? And he goes, yeah, I got 2 of them. I don't think they work. Well, here they are. And I mean, that's going to make my life so much easier. And having 2 is great. And should one ever break down, I've got enough part. This will probably mix paint for the rest of my life. So anyway, before you buy that cheap piece of plastic that runs off air or off of a cordless drill, this is probably going to outlast that. And the cool thing with this, I looked at from the bottom, and if you take this plate off, it's just bolts, and they're threaded straight in. You can take that off, and it's just a belt drive. It's all shafts and bearings. There's no reason you can't press those all off, put new bearings on, and make this as good as new. I'm probably going to take this one when I fix the top. I think I'm going to blow the whole thing apart. And maybe we'll rebuild one. And if it works way, way better, we'll rebuild that one too. Anyway, I just thought it'd be a fun video because I picked these up, and people like really weird old antique shop tools. So yeah, don't get much cooler than that. I mean, these are old shop tools. Fleming Gray Limited, Cambridge, Ontario. Well, we don't make too much in Ontario anymore as far as manufacturing goes, so that's pretty cool. Thanks for watching. Cheers.